Donna, President-elect Biden was pressed in that press avail to explain his claim that this delay in a transition, delay in acknowledging the outcome of the election will cost lives, will kill people. And he very matter-of-factly pointed to the projections that Tony Fauci and other models that the Trump administration itself has looked at projects 388,000 Americans will have lost their lives by Inauguration Day. But just pick up on what Mike Memley is reporting, that there is no movement in greenlighting that transition, which more than the funds is the access to the data that President-elect Biden talked about, access to the sort of stockpiles. He already said today that he will invoke the Defense Production Act, but he is clearly hindered in his ability to defeat the virus, shut down the virus, and protect Americans by Donald Trump.
Well, Nicolle, with every day that passes, it is increasingly clear how much of a barrier the Biden-Harris transition is facing by not having access to this data, not having access to the agencies, and not having access to the people who are running those agencies for an effective transition. The president-elect was very careful in choosing his words, but I'm not going to be careful in choosing mine. This president is dangerous. I always believed that if he didn't win, he would try to burn the house down, and that's exactly what he's doing right now. And mincing no words, people will die in this interim period. And I think it's really just staggering that elected Republican leaders are still fainting to be able to call attention to the president's obstruction, and that he continues to operate. And I think he is operating illegally, but I do believe that Joe Biden is right. That amount of pressure going through the legal system isn't going to change it. Everyone should get to know the name of General Services Administrator Emily Murphy. Know her name, because her Wikipedia page will be changed forever as the person who stood in the way, obstructed the incoming president and the transition. And as a result, people died, Americans died, because Emily Murphy refused to do her job, and Donald Trump is rewarding her for it.
Donna, I've never heard you this upset. Do you believe that the incoming team is fighting aggressively enough against a president who has always benefited from the asymmetry of his willingness and eagerness to be disgusting, to be corrupt, to be illegal, to not act like, or to appear that he doesn't care about a loss of life? Do you think that this fight is fair?
Well, it's my job to be upset on the outside. I don't think it does us any good for the president-elect, for the transition, to do that. But I do think it's important to begin to ramp up the public pressure to do something. These governors in states know that the bodies that will be lost, the lives that will be lost, will actually not be on the White House lawn. They will be in every single one of those states, all 50 states, in which hundreds of thousands of people will die. And these governors know, Republicans and Democrats, that they need the help of the federal government, not yesterday, but today, in order to make sure that their states and the people in their states survive. And so I think it's important to begin to continue to ramp up that public pressure and the demand on this president. This president is operating unlawfully and dangerously, and it's killing Americans.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.